All right, I am reading from the book Living with Art by Mark Getlein, the 11th edition. I'm doing this so that you can listen to it in your car or while you're doing other things if you need to, because the class is only 4 weeks long, and I just want to kind of give you that extra help. I apologize in advance. I am not the best reader for reading out loud, and I often mispronounce names and places. But you can let me know in the comments down below how you feel about that. Chapter 10, Graphic Design. Earlier chapters have emphasized that art is open to interpretation and that a work of art can hold many meanings. This chapter explores the issue of meaning from another point of view, for a graphic designer's task is to try to limit interpretation and to control meaning as much as possible. Graphic design has as its goal the communication of some specific message to a group of people, and the success of a design is measured by how well that message is conveyed. The message might be, "This is a good product to buy," or "This way to the elevators," or restroom, or library, or any of countless others. If it can be demonstrated that the public received the intended message because the product sold well or the traveler found the right services, then the design has worked. Graphic designers attend to the visual presentation of information as it is embodied in the words and/or images. Books, book jackets, newspapers, magazines, advertisements, packaging, websites, CD covers, television and film credits, road signs, and corporate logos are among the many items that must be designed before they can be printed or produced. Graphic design is as old as civilization itself. The development of written languages, for example, entailed a lengthy process of graphic design, as scribes gradually agreed that certain symbols would represent specific words or sounds. Over the centuries, those symbols were refined, clarified, simplified, and standardized, generation after generation of anonymous design work. The field as we know it today, however, has its roots in two more recent developments: the invention of the printing press in the 15th century and the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries. Anyone can write up a notice to be posted on a door. The printing press made it possible to devise a notice that could be reproduced hundreds of times and distributed widely. Someone, however, had to decide exactly how the notice would look. They had to design it. How would the words be placed on the page? Which words should be in large type, which in small? Should there be a border around them, an image to accompany them? The Industrial Revolution, for its part, dramatically increased the commercial applications of graphic design. Before the Industrial Revolution, most products were grown or produced locally to serve a local population. A person who wanted a new pair of shoes, say, could walk down the road to the village cobbler, or perhaps wait for the monthly fair at which several cobblers from neighboring towns might appear. With the advent of machines, huge quantities of goods were produced in centralized factories or for wide distribution. For manufacturers to succeed in this newly competitive and anonymous environment, they had to market both themselves and their wares through advertising, distinctive packaging, and other graphic means. At the same time, the invention of faster presses, automated typesetting, lithography, and photography expanded designers' capabilities, and the growth of newspapers and magazines expanded their reach. Today, international commerce, communications, and travel continue to feed the need for graphic design, and technological developments, most notably the computer, continue to broaden its possibilities. Signs and symbols. One of the most On the most basic level, we communicate through symbols. The sound of the syllable dog, for example, has no direct relation to the animal it stands for. In Spanish, after all, the syllables perro indicate the same animal. Each word is part of a larger symbolic system, a language. Visual communication is also symbolic. Letters are symbols that represent sounds, and the lines we use to draw representational images are symbols for perception. Symbols convey information or embody ideas. Some are so common that we find it difficult to believe they didn't always exist. who, for example, first used arrows to indicate directions. We follow them instinctively now, but at some point they were new and had to be explained. Other symbols embody more complex ideas and associations. Two well-known and ancient symbols are the yin-yang symbol and the swastika. The yin-yang symbol, also known as the Taiji or Tai Chi diagram, embodies the worldview expressed in ancient Chinese philosophy. It gives elegant visual form to ideas about the dynamic balance of opposites that are believed to make up the universe and explain existence: male, yang, and female, yin, being and non-being, light and dark, action and inaction, and so on. The symbol makes it clear that these opposites are mutually interdependent, that no one increases that as one increases, the other decreases, that a portion of each is in the other, that they are defined by each other, that both are necessary to make the whole, and many other ideas. It is a model of successful graphic design. The swastika has an important lesson to teach about symbols, which is that they have no meaning in themselves but are given a meaning by a society or culture. The swastika was first used as a symbol in India and Central Asia, possibly as early as 3000 BCE. It takes its name from the Sanskrit word swastika, meaning good luck or good fortune. Sanskrit was the most important language of ancient India. In Asia, the swastika is still widely used as an auspicious symbol, even on commercial products. Until the 1930s, the swastika was a popular good luck symbol in the West as well. Today, however, it is so thoroughly associated with Nazis, who adopted it as their emblem, that it has become for us a symbol of fascism, racial hatred, and unspeakable atrocities of the concentration camps. Our instinctive recoil from the swastika undergoes not only the power of symbols to serve as repositories for ideas and associations, but also the ability of those ideas and associations to change, sometimes radically. Graphic designers are often asked to create visual symbols. In 1974, the U.S. Department of Transportation commissioned the American Institute of Graphic Arts to develop a set of symbols that could communicate essential information across language barriers to international travelers. Designers selected by the Institute researched symbols then in use in transportation centers around the world, evaluating them for clarity and effectiveness. Their findings informed the design of the symbols illustrated here, which were drawn by the firm of Cook and Shinosky Associates. Today, the symbols are a familiar part of signs in airports and train stations, where they help direct travelers to bus and taxi stands, telephones, hotel information, restrooms, and other key facilities. Among the most pervasive symbols in our visual environment today are logos and trademarks, which are symbols of an organization or a product. An impressive number of these are the work of Paul Rand, one of the most influential of all American graphic designers. Simple, clear, distinctive, and memorable. Each of these corporate logos has become familiar to millions of people around the world, instantly calling to mind the company and its products or services. As with any symbol, a logo means nothing in itself. It is up to an organization to make its logo familiar and to persuade people through sound business practices to associate it with such virtues as service, quality, and dependability. Because symbols serve as focal points for associations of ideas and emotions, one of the most effective ways for a company to change its image is to redo its logo. Both ABC and United Parcel Service have updated their logos. The new logos emphasize continuity with the past by retaining essential elements of Paul Rand's original 1960s design, even as they add a fresh, dynamic look by suggesting reflective, three-dimensional forms instead of flat shapes. The new UPS logo does away with Rand's string-tied package, which no longer conveys the range of services that UPS provides. The upper edge of the shield form now curves into space, as asymmetrical brown interior field curves up to meet it. creating a long sense of movement. ABC's lightly dimensional new logo appears to glow richly from within with deep red, blue, or yellow light. The white letters floating every so slightly before it. A logo often serves as the fundamental element of a brand identif- a logo often serves as the fundamental element of a brand identity program, a larger design undertaking that unifies a brand's overall visual presence. Guidelines for typography, color palette, layout, and imagery are developed for application to letterheads, business cards, packaging, marketing materials, websites, office design, and more to project a consistent image that reflects how the brand wants to be perceived. When AOL split from Time Warner in 2009 to become an independent company, it marked the occasion by unveiling a new logo and brand identity. Developed by Wolf Olins, an international brand consultancy formerly known as America Online, AOL had achieved great success during the early days of the Internet as an access provider before merging with Time Warner in 2001. The splitting off from Time Warner In splitting off from Time Warner, AOL was not only reestablishing itself as an independent company, but also changing its fundamental mission. The new AOL would focus on providing content, information, and entertainment, including a high percentage of original content produced by journalists, artists, and musicians. The challenge to Wolf Olins was to refresh, and rejuvenate AOL's image while also signaling its new direction. The design centers on an updated wordmark or logotype, a standardized text logo. AOL's wordmark is AOL, at an, set in a custom designed font. The lowercase letters relax the logo and distance it from its origin as initialism. The period is intended to signal confidence and completeness, as in AOL has the best online content, period. It also evokes the dot of internet addresses. Displayed in white on a white background, the invisible wordmark is revealed only when a colorful image passes behind it. Hundreds of images and motion graphics have been commissioned from artists and designers to appear behind the AOL wordmark, suggesting the broad range of AOL's content offerings and associating the company with youthful creative energy. Much of the commissioned art favors bright, saturated colors, an aesthetic carried through to the redesigned website and the office furnishing, both of which also feature judicious splashes of bright color on a white background. Typography and layout. Cultures throughout history have appreciated the visual aspects of their written language. In China, Japan, and Islamic cultures, calligraphy is considered an art. Although personal writing in the West has never been granted that status, letters for public architectural inscriptions have been carefully designed since the time of the ancient Romans, whose alphabet we have inherited. With the invention of movable type around 1450, the alphabet again drew the attention of designers. Someone had to decide on the exact form of each letter, creating a visually unified alphabet that could be mass-produced as a typeface, a style of type. No less an artist than Albrecht Dürer turned his attention to the design of well-balanced letter forms. Constructing each letter within a square, Dürer paid special attention to the balance of thick and thin lines and to the visual weight of the serifs, the short cross lines that finish the principal strokes, at the base of an A, for example. The letter Dürer designed would have been laboriously carved in wood or cast in metal, and they would have been placed in position by hand before printing. Today, type is created and set by computer and photographic methods. The design of typefaces continues to be an important and often highly specialized field, and graphic designers have literally thousands of styles to choose from. The text of this book, for example, is set in URW Palladio, which is easy to read, legible, in fairly small sizes, and not tiring to the eyes. This chapter titles, in contrast, are set in sans serif face, a face without finishing lines on the strokes, called Proxima Nova. Joan Dobkin combined commercial typefaces and handmade letterforms in her informational leaflet for Amnesty International, an organization that monitors human rights around the world. Menacing phrases jump out at us from a disorienting tangle of words. You are next, and already told you. The word disappear itself disappears. Dobkin took the text from first-person accounts of political terror in El Salvador. By fragmenting and layering their words, she communicates the helplessness and terror felt by the victims to provoke a direct emotional response from the pamphlet's target audience, potential supporters of Amnesty International. However evocative the cover portion of Dobkin's design may be, the inside the leaflet, a certain amount of information needs to be presented, and presented clearly. One of the most important tasks of graphic designer is to devise a visual presentation that make potentially confusing information easier to grasp. The effect that design can have on our ability to get the information we need quickly and easily is well illustrated by two train schedules. To the left is the schedule that the railroad company distributed for many years. To the right is the same schedule as redesigned by student Annie Stern and her instructor, noted graphic design expert Edward Tuft. The redesign acts as a criticism of the original, and comparing the two can teach us something about what distinguishes a successful design from a less successful one. On the schedule to the left, only a small portion of the page is devoted to the actual departure and arrival times, which thus appear cramped and crowded. And yet, this is the most important information the schedule has to convey. Train times across the day are split into three pairs of columns so that the eye needs to follow a tricky serpentine path through them. Rush hour times are distinguished with a tinted ground, making them more difficult to read. Mysterious symbols crowd the schedule still further, and much space is wasted below in explaining them. Numerous ruled compartments give the impression of organization, but in fact they do little useful work. Weekend train times are set so far from the arrival and departure headings that it is not immediately clear how they are organized. The redesign clears up all those problems and more. The train times are presented in two pairs of columns, clearly separated, weekday to the left and weekends and holidays to the right. Unnecessary ruled lines are eliminated, and many of the annotations are taken up into the schedule itself. The colon in time listings has been replaced with a visually simpler period. A layout is a designer's blueprint for an extended work in print, such as a book or magazine. It includes such specifications as the dimensions of the page, the width of the margins, the size and styles of type for text and headings, the style and placement of running heads or feet line the top or the bottom of that page, commonly give the chapter or part title and page number, and many other elements. The layout of this book, for example, places a single column of text asymmetrically on the page, leaving a slender outer column for captions and a narrow inner margin. Each spread, two facing pages, is thus fundamentally symmetrical, with left and right pages in a mirror image. Illustrations are placed to relieve and even disguise the symmetry, and the page makeup artist took pains to arrange each spread in pleasing asymmetrical composition. Word and image. Among the services offered by early printers in the 15th century was the design and printing of single sheets called broadsides. Handed out to town dwellers and posted in public spaces, broadsides argued political and religious causes, told of recent events, advertised upcoming festivals and fairs, or circulated woodcut portraits of civic religious leaders. They were the direct ancestors not only of advertising and posters, but also of leaflets, brochures, newspapers, and magazines. With the development of color lithography in the 19th century, posters came into their own as the most eye-catching form of advertising, for color printing was not yet practical in magazines or newspapers, and television was still 100 years away. Among the most famous of all 19th century posters are those created by Henry Toulouse-Lautrec for the cabarets and dance halls of Paris. In this poster for a famous dance hall called the Moulin Rouge, the star performer La Goulet is shown dancing the cancan. Google's a company dedicated to organizing the. That made my phone come on. La Goulet is shown dancing the cancan, while in the foreground rises the wispy silhouette of another star attraction, Vallotton, known as the Boneless One. The flattened, simplified forms and the dramatically cropped composition show the influence of Japanese prints, then so popular in Europe. Toulouse-Lautrec's posters were immediately recognized as collector's items, and instructions circulated secretly for detaching them from the kiosk on which they were pasted. Toulouse-Lautrec drew directly on a lithographic stone like the traditionally trained artist that he was. Today, most graphic artists create their designs on a computer and generate digital files that will be sent to an industrial printer. Since Team's posters for exhibition of Chinese graphic design began with a digital photograph of a young man carrying an armful of lit fluorescent tubes and a tangle of electric cords. The intriguing image suggests that he is working on a project of some kind. Assembled from line segments, the text laid over the image brings to mind the numerals and letters familiar from digital displays on clocks, stereo components, and other electronics. A closer look reveals the letters and characters were constructed from links of lit fluorescent tubing, photographed and then miniaturized. Is this what the young man is up to? The layout includes a witty interaction between the text and the image, further linking them. Note the way two of the Chinese characters fit the model's eyes like a pair of glasses. Visitors to the exhibit would find that the signage there was made from fluorescent tubes, such as the ones the young man is shown carrying. Beginning outside the exhibition space, the signage drew people in with light and then served as lighting for the exhibit itself. The sophisticated graphics, video, and music editing programs now widely available allow amateurs to create their own advertisements in response to professionally produced work. One advertisement that inspired a great deal of amateur creativity was the iPod Silhouette campaign. The iPod was launched in 2001, but it was not until the silhouette advertisements appeared that sales skyrocketed. The black silhouettes of young people dancing against neon-colored backgrounds to music they heard over a handheld white iPod. For graphically bold, clear, and simple. The minimal text and Apple logo were also set in white, linking them clearly with the product. Realized as posters, billboards, and television commercials, the advertisements stood out easily in cluttered visual environments, and they conveyed an image of self-conscious environment that appealed to the broad public. They conveyed an image of unself-conscious enjoyment that appealed to a broad public. Instructions for how to duplicate the advertisement quickly proliferated on the internet, enabling thousands of imitations, variations, homages, and parodies. A later version of the iPod Touch, inspired an 18-year-old university student to create a 30-second video tour of the product using video clips from Apple's website and a song by the Brazilian band CSS. Posted on YouTube, the video was discovered by employees at Apple's marketing department who asked their advertising agency to contact the student about transforming the video into a television commercial. Such user-generated advertising is increasingly recognized as a way for brands to enter into a dialogue with consumers whose creativity has been unleashed by today's digital technologies. Motion interactivity. With the development of film and television, graphic design was set in motion. Words and images worked together in film titles, television program titles, and advertisements, all of which needed to be designed. With the digital revolution, a new element was added for designers to work with interactivity, the possibility of give and take between users and technology by means of an interface. In the forefront of today's motion graphics are designers who generate videos on the computer by writing code. A dramatic example is this video about the Audi TT sedan created by British designers Matt Pike at Universal Everything and Karsten Schmidt at Post Spectacular. As the video begins, vividly colored lines stream rapidly away from us into the depths of a blank space. Their swarming gradually reveals the silhouette of a car that pivots and then drives away, leaving the line swirling in the turbulence of its wake. The effect is magical, for the car is never seen. It is implied by the void left by the streaming lines. The video was created using a programming language called processing, which was developed with artists and designers in mind. Pike and Schmidt used processing to create a virtual wind tunnel. The streaming lines in the video indicate wind flow. The program generated video in real time at full high-definition resolution, with no further production work necessary. The video ran as a traditional advertisement on television, but it was also released onto the internet as a viral video to be forwarded from person to person and posted on sharing sites around the world. As we have seen, graphic design can reveal information by organizing facts or data in visually coherent ways. The train schedules discussed earlier are an example of this. Both take the facts of arrival and departure times and arrange them so that we can more easily retrieve the information we need. The redesigned schedule reveals even more information than the original schedule does, for it shows the relationship between weekday and weekend train times. The original schedule is not arranged in a way that makes that information visible. We can see these same principles at work in an interactive setting on a website called Graffiti Archaeology. Like the train schedules, Graffiti Archaeology takes isolated facts, in this case individual photographs, and sets them in a structure that reveals the information they contain. Designed by Cassidy Curtis, Graffiti Archaeology makes visible the evolution of graffiti sites over time as graffiti writers paint on top of each other's work. To the left is a list of sites grouped by general area. When a site is selected, all the available images for it are loaded onto the screen, with the most recent layer displayed on top. A graphic display at the bottom of the screen shows how many layers of photographs are available and situates them on a timeline. Moving backward in time, we can peel back layer after layer of imagery to see what is hidden underneath. At the lower left, zoom controls and a navigator allows us to examine images in greater detail. One special challenge for interaction designers is how to create visual clarity from the vast quantities of data that computers are capable of processing. W. Bradford Paley takes up this challenge in TextArt, a program that displays the entire text of a book on a single screen and allows users to explore relationships between its words. Paley conceived TextArt as a tool that would allow a user to quickly gain some understanding of the context of an unknown text, a business report, for example, in the illustration here. TextArt has displayed the text to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The entire text appears twice in two concentric spirals. The outer spiral reproduces the book line for line. The font is single pixel in height. The inner spiral consists of each word in the book at readable size. Words that appear more than once in the text are set in the inner oval-shaped field Their exact position there is determined by where in the text they occur. Frequently used words are displayed brighter than less frequently used words, so that merely by loading Alice in Wonderland into TextArc we would know that Alice, Hatter, Queen, Griffin, Rabbit, and Duchess are important personages in the story. By selecting individual words or sentences and by working with a series of menus, we can envision the many verbal relationships of the novel. For example, selecting a word from the field causes orange lines to radiate from it to each place in the inner spiral of the words where it belongs, and each line that it appears in turns green in the outer spiral. TextArc can also simply read the text from beginning to end, a slow but visually fascinating process that illuminates keywords, associations, locations, and relations as they pass by. Graphic design is all around us, part of the look of daily life. Many art museums maintain collections of graphic design which overlap with art in interesting ways. Indeed, many artists have worked as graphic designers, and many graphic designers also make art. One of the first artists to acknowledge the power of graphic design to become part of our personal world was Andy Warhol. His famous images of Campbell's soup cans are often talked about in the context of the history of art, for they signaled the arrival of a new kind of subject matter. Some viewers have seen them as a criticism of mass production and consumer culture. Other viewers have seen them as a celebration of those same things. But one thing they certainly are is a collection of affectionate portraits of a very successful graphic design, the Campbell Soup label. Campbell's first unveiled its red and white labels in 1898. The gold medal was added in 1900. The product won a gold medal at an international exhibition. For almost a century afterward, the label remained unchanged, a visual fact of daily life that accompanied several generations of Americans from the childhood through old age. When they asked why he painted the soup cans, Warhol answered, "I just paint things I always thought were beautiful, things you use every day and never think about." Campbell's finally changed their soup labels in 1999. 12 years after Warhol's death. Campbell's finally changed their soup labels in 1999, 12 years after Warhol's death. From now on, viewers coming into contact with Warhol's paintings for the first time will have to be told that soup cans really looked like that once. Whereas Warhol painted portraits of graphic design, Barbara Kruger appropriated its methods. Kruger worked for years as a graphic designer and an art director for glossy magazines, where she became expert in the ways that words and images are used together to influence readers. She made use of her experience in works such as Untitled, Your Gaze Hits the Side of My Face, which combines words and images in the manner of a poster or an advertisement. The image is a found photograph of a sculpture of a woman's head, note the block case. It can neither see nor speak, passive and motionless. It exists only to be looked at. The words, in contrast, are visually more dynamic. Every other word punches outward toward us, asserting itself and disrupting our reading. The woman's face is a natural focal point, and each time we are drawn back to it, we enact the statement. Again and again, our gaze hits the side of her face until we become aware of our looking as a kind of aggression. Kruger uses the familiar look of graphic design to convey unexpected and often unsettling messages. Natalie Meebach takes the content of graphic design data that we would normally expect to see presented through charts and graphs and gives it an unfamiliar visual form. Antarctic tidal rhythms embodies a year's worth of data concerning the gravitational influence of the sun and the moon on the Arctic environment. At the core of the work is a basketry form. Like a graph, a basket is made of horizontal and vertical elements. By aligning values to those elements as one would to the horizontal and vertical axis of a graph, Meebach allows data to direct her weaving and to determine the form the basket takes. In Antarctic tidal rhythms, the basket is woven according to rising and setting times for the moon and the sun over the course of a year. It grows from a circular base that represents 24 hours, with each weaving representing an hour. Mibach refers to her baskets as temporal landscapes, for they make visible the shape of data over a length of time. Onto this temporal landscape she plots additional sets of data using color-coded elements such as wooden beads, blocks, and stakes. Here wooden stakes and styrofoam spheres chart tide readings, phases of the moon, solar noon readings, and the molecular structure of ice. Mibach wants her sculptures to reveal the beauty of complexity and to inspire viewers to think about the differences between the visual vocabulary they associate with science and the visual vocabulary they associate with art. If beyond that they become interested in the data that underlies her work, so much the better. When you present the viewer with graphs and charts and data sheets full of numbers about climate change, say that's an incredibly intimidating thing, she says. But you present that same information through this weird, almost roller coastery looking organic form, it lures them in. Designers working with digital motion graphics move with particular ease between design assignments and the expanding field of new media art, where digital technologies are turned to expressive ends. For example, Universal Everything, the design firm behind the audio video we looked at earlier, often draws on international networks of designers, performers, and musicians to create animated digital works for museum settings. 1000 Hands, illustrated here, was a crowd-sourced audio-visual installation based in a downloadable mobile app that Universal Everything developed and made available for free. The app opens to a musical soundtrack composed for the project. Users draw a line with their finger, any kind of line, which the app automatically transforms into a three-dimensional animated linear form that pulsates and twists and shifts its color to the beat of the music. Users could customize their creation, adjusting its complexity, energy level, and color, then submit it to join the dancing throngs of drawings projected on the circular screen in the gallery, all moving to the beat of the music, each in its own way. The exhibition is over, but as of this writing, the app is still available, and drawings can be submitted to an online gallery that Universal Everything maintains on its site. We have come to accept the idea that a work of art may inspire many interpretations and hold many meanings, but it was not always this way. As we have seen before, our modern ideas about art were in place. Artists often worked for clients who expected them to convey a message, whether about religious doctrine, a historical event, the power of a great ruler, or an episode from a favorite tale. Graphic designers continue that task, bending new technologies to the principle of communicative clarity and visual elegance that have been at the core of graphic design since the scribes first developed writing. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 10. We're going into part 4 of this book on three-dimensional media. But before that, I believe you need to go and take a quiz. Thanks for listening. I hope this was better than chapter 9 or chapter 8. I apologize in advance. This is good reading about very interesting stuff, and I hope you will take the time to look at the pictures and read it on your own. Thanks for listening.